Guys, it's Sam the Anime Man, and today we're diving into one of the most underrated characters in Fairy Tail, and that is Grey. Now, whether I'm talking to a hardcore Fairy Tail fan or Fairy Tail haters, there's one thing that they seem to agree on, and that's that Grey is actually a very well written character. He's cool and he's complex, and yes, he is usually shirtless, but beneath all that story is a story of pain, loyalty, and growth that deserves way more appreciation. So let's break it down. Why is Grey the way he is? His story starts with loss, a massive gut-wrenching loss. He's orphaned by the demon Deliora and he destroys his hometown. He's just a kid when he ends up under the care of a powerful ice mage who becomes his teacher and honestly his mother figure. And alongside Leon, Grey actually starts to find peace. But it's short-lived, because Grey recklessly goes after Deliora, and because of this action, Aura has to sacrifice herself to save him, freezing the demon at the cost of her own life. That trauma never really leaves Grey. It shapes him to who he is. It gives him a constant reminder and a constant fear of losing the ones that he loves. This is something that shows in every battle that he is in. When you watch Grey's fights, you start to notice a pattern. He always puts himself in harm's way to protect others. He literally becomes a human shield for Fairy Tail and his friends. You want examples? Sure. In his fight against Mad Gear, he jumps in front of a blast to save Natsu, Sting and Rogue. When Zerv shows up, Grey doesn't hesitate to use the Ice Shell, which is a move that would erase him from existence just to protect everyone. And his fight with Altair and the way he sacrificed himself for Juvia, using his own blood to create ice. All these moments scream one thing to me. Grey doesn't value himself the way that his friends do. That kind of self-sacrifice comes from deep-rooted trauma. It makes Grey to ask the questions. Does he deserve to be here? Is he strong enough to protect anyone that he loves? And am I still the burden that I used to be? But through Fairy Tail and through the friends that he makes, Grey continues to push forward. Not because he's the strongest, but because he refuses to give up on his guild and his friends and himself. Strength for Grey isn't about magic, it's about resilience and compassion, and that ability not to fight enemies, but your own guilt and his own grief. So I know Grey also has his own side manga, and the art is actually fire. And if you're a fan, you definitely should check it out. It has more layers to his backstory. But back to the main series. There are a few standard arcs that really show off his development. The game is one of the best arcs in anime. Grey doesn't hold back here and he fights for Fairy Tail fiercely. You can see this when he versus the person in Batooth and the way he defeats him and the way he defeats Leon. In Dragon God arc, while the animation didn't do Grey's fight justice, the kind of lead up to that fight was actually one of the peak moments for Grey in my opinion. And Tartarus, again, one of the most underrated shonen arcs of all time. And this is where Grey got his Devil Slayer mark. Talk about that Devil Slayer mark. During the Tartarus arc, Grey obtains the power of the Devil Slayer. First, it just seems like a major power boost just to fight demons. But what this actually represents goes way deeper. It's not a new spell or just Grey being emo for no reason. It actually describes Grey's character. Power is supposed to kill demons. Don't ignore how symbolic that is. He's literally becoming a Devil Slayer to confront his past and protect his future. But it comes with a cost. The Devil Slayer magic is cursed. It feeds off negative emotions. In the time skip, that Devil Slayer mark is slowly getting over his body. As a result, he starts to isolate himself. And you can see that he's kind of slipping towards the darkness and his goal of slaying END. But what makes Grey such a great character in my opinion, is that even though there is so much trauma inside that boy, he decides to fight for someone. To fight for the light, and his light is Juvia. We can't talk about Grey's development without talking about Juvia. Her love for him is one of the most consistent and genuine things in the entire show. At first, it seems like a running joke, that she's clingy and she's obsessed and she's over the top, but over time, we see that the love's actually really pure, really unshakable. And that what makes Grey uncomfortable, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't believe that he deserves that kind of love. To be loved regardless of what he does and how he does it. He sees himself as a reckless kid who got his mentor killed, and as someone who brings pain, not love. Then everything changes. During the Alvarez War arc, when Juvia lays her life down for Grey, hesitation, it mirrors what did for him all those years ago. But this time, he can't ignore it. He feels what it's like to be loved unconditionally, and he almost lost that. And he finally accepts that he can be loved. It's when Grey starts to heal. He realizes that he's not a burden, and he's worthy of love. at least Jivia's love. And in the 100-year quest, we get the most beautiful confirmation of that growth. He says that he doesn't live for himself, but he lives for Jivia. Let that sink in. A character who spent most of his life carrying guilt and pushing people away, Gray finally finds purpose, not in revenge, not in redemption, but in love. And that's what you see in every fight in 100-year quest. He's not just fighting for the guild anymore, he's fighting for the future that he wants, the future with Jivia. The man who thought wants to die now fights to live. So yeah, Gray isn't just the cool, quiet, shirtless guy with sick ice powers. He's a tragic, loyal, broken, growing human who fights every day to remind himself that he can be loved. Let me know in the comments, what's your favourite Gray moment? Was it his Devil Slayer moment? Was it his sacrifice for Jivia in the Alvarez War arc? Or was it something completely different? For me, it was a Nazi scream Gray and he sniped Margit out there, bro. That was so cold. But besides that, remember to like and subscribe. And remember guys, Jesus loves you. Bye bye.